Well, we have new information on the arrest of the parents of a missing boy. Court documents reveal that they used marijuana and drugs on the day that little autistic child left his home. News 4's Ken Curtis is with us. And Ken, these are the claims in court documents.
Yeah, those documents showing they used marijuana, as you mentioned, but also methamphetamine. Shyanne Ray and Joshua Wilkerson face 2 felony counts each of chemical endangerment. Claims are they used the meth and pot around on January 12th. That's the day that little Phenix Wilkerson, that little 4-year-old autistic boy, walked away from his Barber County home. Searchers found Wilkerson after a frantic 2-day search during which they all but gave up hope because of rain and sub-freezing temperatures. Sources say hospital workers took blood from Phenix Wilkerson, which revealed drug usage, and his sister later also tested. State Bureau of Investigation agents filed complaints yesterday that led to the arrest in Henry County. Now, while no reason is given because the boy went missing in Barber County, what that arrest in Henry County, because it's a Henry County case, tells us that the alleged crimes occurred there. Phenix is under the care of the Department of Human Resources, despite each of his parents facing 2 charges. It's unclear for sure that his sibling tested positive, but I'm told she did.
Thank you, Ken. We're just glad that he's home. Well, chemical endangerment is a felony, though under sentencing guidelines, the couple may not face prison time.